That's where we're starting. All right, so I wanted to say a thank you to start with to the editor of The Undercurrent. We're really, really fortunate having such great editors for Bowen Island that really make a difference in running Bowen's stories. And Alex really did a fantastic job on that article. I was expecting maybe one picture and an abbreviated version of what I wrote, and he put it all in there. So extraordinarily grateful to him. And I'd like to say thank you to Vaughn for putting in quite a bit of time day before, to make sure that this camera connected with the computers. So I was, again, pretty grateful. And then to Robert, we've done what, 4, 5 different pre-practices. So
I stopped counting.
Okay. Which is, I guess, I lost count, but my thanks to them. And I guess the reason why I want to talk about the Easter eggs is because we are seeing such grief and horror in the world, that the eggs are kind of supposed to be the complete opposite of that, bringing peace and joy and protection and happiness and long lives and just all those good wishes that you would want to wish to somebody. And to have the counterpoint of Ukraine in action right now and having to make Easter eggs, they're so apart on the spectrum that it's like the peace initiative on one side and the war on the other, and it's heart-rendering. So I wanted to do this because of showing just another side of what Ukrainians are all about, or what I believe they're all about, and to show friends the fantastic beauty of the eggs and the behind the scenes things that happen to make them so beautiful. And then to thank Rotary for being there for so many people, like to be able to get shelter boxes around the world in the middle of a disaster is quite incredible, and for Rotary to step up and work on that. So it's my thank you to Rotary. And then I'm dedicating it to my family, that I hope that this is something that they can look back on and learn from and teach their sweeties. There you go. So one of the ways how did I get into making Easter eggs? So I'm going to pull out the magazine. My brothers and my parents always had a subscription to National Geographic. And in April of '72, so it would have been the end of March, this magazine arrived at our house. And my younger brothers and I was kind of first year university, just thought the pictures were the most stunning things we'd ever seen, and had absolutely no idea there were eggs like that in the world. So we're oohing and awing and just like, oh, holy Toledo, right? And my dad walked over and looked at what we were oohing and awing about and says, oh, my mom made those when I was a little boy. And we're like, what? Like when? like what? And because he'd always told us we were Austrians. So to have the thought that we had Ukrainian somewhere in there was just stunning. So he went out to the shed, and if I lay that down, does it still show?
Yep.
Or should I put it under the spotlight one?
Well, not if you're going to be showing us something else.
Yes. So he went out to the shed to make me pens, and I still have them, so 50 years later. And basically what he did is took a quarter round wood and kind of tried to whittle it down to make them handles, and then took a bit of shim stock, he said, and made tubes and wrapped them with string all the way around it. And then, because his background was kind of a bit of a scientist and engineer and stuff, it had a Bunsen burner that he melted brown crayons. We had to find all the brown crayons. He melted it in, and then we would dunk these pens into the wax and write. And I guess that's an older style of doing it, but what his mom did. And I just recently, a few days ago, saw a video of kind of out in the country, Ukrainians. So a very small family sitting around the table. They had a bucket on the table that looked like had coals or the ashes from the fire, but it was hot, and they had a pot, like a tin can of wax melted in it, and everybody was dipping their pen in, scraping on the side so it didn't drip, and writing on their eggs. So I guess that must be what my grandmother did. No idea. So do you want to do a close-up on the pens to show them under the camera? So I've got the damn. Excuse me.
We see your hand, but not the tip.
Okay. So I can't see the screen because it's telling me if I want to.
It's okay. We see the eggs fine. So if you hold them against the eggs, it'll be fine. Perfect.
There we go. So that was my beginning. And I was in university in education program, and took the pens to school to show one of the classes that I was student teaching in. And the teacher in the next classroom decided she wanted me to demonstrate in her room. And she told a professor at university that I had done it. I mean, it was Peter Shostak, who's actually a very he was a big name in Ukrainian art. He was a painter and potter and everything like that. So he told me that the Ukrainian ladies in Victoria were going to do a workshop for the week. And if he could try and work it for me, that I would get to join them. So I did. And I got to have a week long with these ladies, learning new techniques from a lady from Edmonton. And I was kind of the youngest person there and taken under their wing. And they were reaching over, and I had my clipboards and paper to take notes, and the notes that we were given, and they were drawing on my notes. This was the pattern their mother taught them, and shared it with me. So I was being gifted with what would be handed down from mother to daughter, the special patterns that they use. I was really honored. It was really quite incredible to be included like that. And they basically set me straight. I needed a different kind of pen. And I think the pen I moved to was, sorry, I wasn't planning. I was going to show this later, but better show now, was more a funnel pen. So I'll show them again later so you can have a close-up of it. So same thing, the funnel, something through the center that you scoop the wax with, and you then heat it between your wax and write on your egg. So they kind of taught me, and from there to be really advanced was into this kind of pen. So I continued kind of working with teaching, and every class I was in, I would demonstrate. When we were close to Easter time, I was showing children what I was doing. I made these big posters that are off camera right now, but I'll have them for when we set up for the shelter box to show the symbols. And eventually when I was actually teaching, I would teach to a class, and if the principal gave permission, I actually set up in the classroom that every kid had his own pen and his own wax and egg, and they got to make them. And I remember being kind of worried because open flame and kids, and I had to assure the principals that I would have sufficient supervision, so mothers would come in, or teachers who were on a break or something would come help me monitor everything to make sure Kleenexes didn't catch on fire, or the end of the pan or the kid. And I remember one of the lessons that I was teaching, every time I turned around, and I was just still kind of giving instructions about what the designs meant and that kind of thing. A janitor would be sneaking into the room with a fire extinguisher and putting it somewhere in the room. And when he came in on the third visit, I'm like, oh my God, we're all going to die. Because if there was a fire in a school, all the extinguishers were surrounding me for the whole school, right? He'd just quietly come in, put another one down, and out he'd go. I was like, now I know how to use one, but at the time I had no clue, so it wouldn't have helped us in the classroom, but it was just interesting. And on one of my talks at a school, I was asked to come. I shared a lot in all the classrooms at Fix. So Bond's son Sean and Robert's daughter Cimarron was in class with Mateusz. So they all had to, Matt probably embarrassed us all get out of his mother in there demonstrating, but every one of those classrooms would kind of book me to come in and talk. And then I did a couple of courses for them where they did a Friday afternoon or a Wednesday afternoon, one or the other, kind of 5-week course. So they had people from the community come in and share or teach something of their passion. So I did Easter eggs. And the counselor from Bowen Island School moved to an alternate program in West Vancouver, and she asked if I would come teach one of the classes there. So these are kids that had, I guess, dropped out and were coming back or had problems in their lives and schooling had been disrupted. And was teaching, and this one girl, and I guess was really had a rough home life. Instead of actually writing on her egg, she took, you use beeswax. With these pens, you need to use beeswax. And that counselor had provided everyone with a really good pen and had the beeswax on hand. So the girl took the beeswax and was just slowly warming it up and melting it and sculpted it on top of the egg. So the egg ended up being this solid black egg. And the teachers were busy. I want to show it on the other camera. The teachers were busy apologizing to me for this egg that she did and trying to explain her background of what a rough home life and that kind of stuff. And I was just so enchanted that it gave her some peace in sculpting the wax on the egg. I had no problem with it. And when I finished the course, I did it over a couple of days, I think, with them. I asked her, what was she going to do with the egg? And if she didn't want it, may I have it? And she kind of looked at me, shook her head like, weird lady, but let me have it. And it's a really touching memory for me that if nothing else, it gave her some peace just playing with the wax. So it's a treasure for me. I had one class working in inner city classrooms where the students were all like a United Nations group of kids. And I was trying to, we set up and we worked on eggs, but first I gave them a lesson, which I'm going to show you in a second. And one boy made me an egg that said on it, especially egg that said season's greetings on it. So I thought that was pretty cool. So eggs started off like 5,000 years ago. There was a culture in Ukraine called the Tropilian culture. And the patterns, the designs, let's see if I got that right. Not this side. The patterns or designs were very organic, I guess, and all in the earth tone colors.
So now you can talk.
We found them on pottery. They were found on pottery through the ages coming. This is the Tropilian culture. And so the earliest culture kind of in Ukraine. And their eggs were, they found some in 19 or 1845 or something. Archaeologists found actual egg remnants with these patterns on. And I would show my students and say, what do those patterns remind, and I need it again in a second, sorry, I use it again. What do the patterns remind you of? And I was going for like First Nations kind of style or Aboriginal style or African art. And one of my students said, it looks like Ibuki masks, the art on Ibuki masks. I remember just, my jaw just dropped because he was right. I had never even thought of that. And it kind of really led me to feel that, you know, our beginning art was kind of universal all over the world. They were writing with ochre and anything that pigments that they could get from the ground to be able to do those, which is why it explains the coloring on them. And my kids felt more connected to actually working on the eggs because it was a little bit, they felt it was a little bit of their culture, like the First Nation students and the Japanese students and stuff really liked it. And my Chinese students were absolutely delighted because the pens were made from chopsticks. So everybody took ownership of doing this egg, that it was part of them. And it made me feel pretty excited as a teacher that I could draw them all into it. This year, working on eggs has been really tough with Ukraine. And usually, passing that book back for a minute. Sorry. Usually before Easter, I would be sitting going through looking, I've got them all post-noted, looking at pages of designs or patterns or whatever that I liked to kind of get me inspired to get going or pick something or amalgamate ideas from all of them and do it. And I couldn't get beyond the grief of what I was watching to be able to do it. And I was noticing on Richard's Facebook, a lot of people were putting up eggs that they'd made already. So I was absolutely enjoying following these gorgeous eggs. And what kind of threw me is all the eggs were being done in the Ukraine, the colors of Ukraine. So they were all yellow and blue eggs. They were putting on, you know, Ukrainian flags or the trizub, the trident symbol was being marked on the eggs. And it upset me to see kind of like war symbols on an egg that's supposed to be good wishes and peace. And I noticed that they were advertising, there was Prayers for Ukraine Day or a Pysanky for Ukraine Day, April 1st, where members all over the world were going to be writing eggs for Ukraine. So I decided to join them. You had to pre-register and join, and found out that they had 5,000 members in the world, all writing eggs on the same day, all for Ukraine. And that on the actual Zoom meeting was maybe like 340 people. So they were sharing ideas, they were sharing their grief, they were sharing solutions to problems that you might have making eggs. And it was the most comforting and peaceful kind of meeting that I've ever been part of. And one of the ladies put up an egg that it'll forever be in my mind as the best egg I've ever seen. And it was just simply an egg with, it's a 48 triangle egg. So it's a particular pattern. I'll show you that in a minute. That she alternated the pattern between one section were spirals and it was triangular spirals going into getting smaller in one section and sunflowers in the other section. And it was so beautiful in my head. I thought, okay, I need to make sunflowers for Ukraine. I couldn't put their, can I go close up? I couldn't put the flag or I couldn't put the flag or, how do I say it, Richard? The trizub? I just couldn't do that. That just doesn't belong on an egg. But the sunflowers representing love and happiness and Ukraine, no problem. So that was the first egg that I did. And I was kind of stumped because my dies weren't taking that well. My lines are kind of crooked, and it was like, I wasn't really behind the egg until I tried making the sunflowers. And on the sunflowers, there's one I think I really, really like, and the rest are all just attempts to try and do it. So it wasn't my finest egg, but it would probably mean the most to me this year for having managed to do it.
Lynn, that's the sunflower we see, the half in the side in the triangle. Is that what we're seeing as sunflowers?
Little half. And her style of doing it was like a nice rounded scallop in a half circle. Mine are like, I actually did little petals. So hers was just stunning, but I gave it a try. There's my egg for Ukraine. And let's jump to, in the division of the egg, here's an example. May I switch to the wide screen again, please? Thank you. On that, when you're working on an egg, the egg gets divided in certain fields, I guess would be. And on this particular book, this is the 40 squares, I suppose. And then this is the 48. The 41 represents all the compartments of life and living. You know, you do farm work, you get married, you have children, you know, each is a compartment of life. On the triangle egg, it's more related to Trinity. So mother, father, child, or earth, wind, fire, I guess, you know, anything related to Trinity. And when Christianity kind of took over, when the Ukrainians took on Christianity about 986 AD, I guess, when they joined in, all of these symbols became more Christian symbols. So this became Father, Son, and Holy Ghost kind of thing. But when you're looking at your egg, you're always trying to decide what are your divisions going to be, and then you put your pattern into those divisions. So kind of an important part. So every symbol on the egg, so those divisions all have meanings. I don't know all of them, I know those two. The designs you use on the egg have a meaning. The colors you use on the egg all have a meaning, and all of them are wishing for hope and happiness, basically. And it turns out that the Ukrainians, the very earliest ones, so from the Trypillian time, were sun worshippers. And the eggs started off being made to welcome back spring. So you would put, can I do close up again? You would put birds on the egg because birds would sing the harbinger of spring. Flowers would be put on because the flowers are showing spring. You would use a lot of green on your egg because, again, you were calling spring to you. This particular egg is one of my favorite patterns, and it's basically the fern unfolding from the warmth of the sun. So this egg is actually called a spring egg. And there are several patterns that are specifically done to welcome spring. That's some of the beginning patterns were done to welcome spring. Oh, I'm thinking here. Anyway, I made that sunflower, kind of the flowers to welcome spring, and I want to show you maybe dividing an egg. And Richard, I left the eggs I'm going to draw on in the wrong spot. Richard, I need those 2 cartons, please. My tech support here. I need those 2 cartons, egg cartons. Nope. Nope, right beside. Over. Yes, 1 and 2. Perfect. I didn't have room on the table to put everything. From here. Oh, don't touch the cord. Maybe I need the other one, Richard. So when you're working on an egg, the egg basically is representing life, renewal of life. And you're working on a full egg because the yolk and the white inside represent life. And they would leave the yolk and egg inside, it wouldn't be removed, because the whole spirit of that egg is celebrating life and the renewal of life in the spring. So it doesn't fit the image to drain it. However, I have some drained ones that I'm going to use for drawing on quickly, because my hands are shaking, and get lit up. And I'm going to show you one of the divisions that we work on. I'm glancing over. Oh, I'm going to tell you what the different types of eggs, but I'll do that in a second. So I'm warming up my pen, and I'm trying, if I go into the flame, I cause smoke and I put soot on the pens. That probably wasn't my better move. And if I had a Kleenex here, I'll actually give it a little wipe, just for, shouldn't have demoed like that. And when I'm heating it, I have two types of pens, so I'm going to show you both types in a minute, but I'm heating it to make sure it's hot enough, and then I'm taking some of that beeswax, which is in the sheet, and I'm melting with the beeswax into the cup, into the funnel. I go back and reheat it to make sure that it did all heat up, and top it up so then know it'll write. There we go. And normally when I'm working, the oils from your hands will stop the shell from taking color. And so you want to handle the eggshell as little as possible to keep it oil free. And thinking I probably shouldn't use the wax part.
Lynn, if you could talk a little bit louder, please.
Sorry. Okay, I'm mumbling. So I've heated my pen. I don't know if you notice, it's dripped a couple of times, which I got a little too hot. When I'm starting to work, I make sure my elbows are completely tight to my sides. My hands are resting on the table. I have a Kleenex in my hand, which I have to pay attention that I don't need a fire extinguisher. And one hand is kind of going to brace on the other hand. So that the bracing that you do between your fingers and the egg and what you're doing is what allows you to return to the same spot every time to continue your line. So the first lines that are made is you divide your egg in half. And I listened to a video a week ago that a lady in New York had been asked by her friends to teach them how to do Easter eggs. So she made this video for it, and she explained it so well how to do a straight line that I'm going to repeat it and share it with you. So she suggested, so ignore the hole, she suggested to put a dot in the bottom, center of the bottom of the egg, or not quite center because I got a hole there, and a dot in the center of the top of the egg. And then eyeball between your top of your egg and your bottom of your egg, and put a dot halfway between those two. So I'd say about there. Then she said, you take, oh, my hands are shaking, sorry. To take and look between the top of the dot at the top and top in the middle, eyeball, and put another one halfway. And for the bottom, same thing. Look at the top, look at the bottom, put a dot part way. So I've got dots that basically should be making a straight line. And then she said, now you connect the dots. Now in a lot of the books teaching about Ukrainian Easter eggs, they're saying, take a pencil and draw the line on. Take an elastic band, wrap it around the egg, and for my elastic band, take the elastic band, wrap it around the egg, trace along the side. And like, oh my goodness, my grandmother didn't have elastic bands, I don't think. And I don't think she had a pencil either. I tell you, I actually looked up when were pencils invented. So it's possible she did, but I don't think she would have written on an egg. Like, I don't think our forebears did that.
So you don't?
I don't. But I thought this dot business was actually incredibly clever for somebody first starting, because what happens eventually is you get that feel in your hands that you can do it automatically if you're not shaking. So let's just see how I do. And I'm turning it because the egg is actually kind of slippery. So I'm reheating my pan because it cooled down. I go back to my dot. My elbows are tucked at my side. My hands are resting on the table. And I'm going to focus between the two dots and connect the dots. And I'm shaking. And we'll go to the, okay, Kleenex is out. Pretend the Kleenex is in my hand, all right? When you're using an actual raw egg, it's heavier, there's a weight in your hand. So it's not, this is just kind of trying to float. I'm going to connect to the next dot. And you always write away from you, because if you write towards you, you have a habit that elbow will act as this, like the center of a compass, and you will make a curve rather than a straight line. And you have better control when you're writing away from you. Okay, I'm going to connect the next dot who actually wasn't quite in the right line, and to my top. You notice I went back and reheated the pen. When I'm reheating the pen, I'm just kind of doing along the outside front edge. And it's too hot or smoking. I'll just add a bit of wax in there to kind of cool it down a little bit. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to try with no dots down the back, and let's see. It wants to drip. Okay, got it drip off. And I'm just going to write down the back. Now, when you're writing, you're actually looking over the edge to see where's the other line, to make sure you can have a bit of wiggle room to actually make sure that they join up.
And you're using your knuckles against the egg to...
Just these two, and this is why I basically would be using the Kleenex there to stop the whatever oils you might have on your hand from actually going on this section where you're rubbing more and spoiling how it will take the dye. So division, one basic division, front and back. Now I'm going to divide it in quarters. So I'm going back to the first hole, reheat my pen. And I can see that it's a little bit hollow inside there. So I'm going to top it up. There's a fine line of over topping, and you're going to get a drip to just the right amount. It's dripping right now. To having the, and you end up, on some of them, you end up a nice little blot right where you don't want it. So you have to figure out a pattern to incorporate that dot or blob or splat or whatever you manage to make into your pattern. Sometimes people that are pretty serious about making Easter eggs have found all kinds of solutions on how to remove wax where they don't want it, like lighter fluid and magic erasers. Now I saw, it's like some of this stuff I've never heard of doing, but it was an eye-opener joining this group for the day.
Now what you're doing is protecting the white of the egg at this point. You're not drawing a line that we're going to see on the finished egg.
No, so that everything that looks black right now will be white on the final egg. So I've done, it's now in quarters, and I'm going to make it eighths. So I'm going to the center, and if I found where I actually had that dot should have been in the center, and you see that it isn't, it's a little off. So I'll just try and even it up. And I'm looking for where I'm going as I do it. And the action is almost like I'm turning the egg with my left hand and letting the pen remain still, but I kind of do a little of both. I move the pen as much as I move the egg. Reheat. Back to where I am. I'm going around. Oh. And last, so a little off, but I can kind of wiggle, I suppose, towards the end to make them connect. No, I won't do it. I'll just Okay. So everything here is going to be white. And I need to divide it if I want to do a star. And I'm going to just call this a practice egg. One of the first instructors that I worked with said, okay, now look at how your lines are. Pick your best side and make it your front. So I guess it's going to be that one. And warm my pen up a bit. And I'm going to divide each of these. And I'm going to try and find halfway between this point and this point with that line, okay? I'll do it in the other direction. And on an egg, to right away from you, you're always moving your egg to get in position to right away. Now, try and remember it should be in the Kleenex. You know, I should be protecting the surface, but. Okay, turn it. And I'm starting at the center and going. It might help for someone just learning that you would give yourself, put a little dot that you're heading up there, that's your halfway. And when your elbows tucked, hands resting against the table, your knuckles are kind of against the egg, you can kind of line it up naturally, like you can eyeball it so you can see where you're going. And I've got a dot there already. I'll just head to it. So here we are with a, can I go to the close-up? Divided egg ready to do a star. Now on the star, I was trying to read as much as I could to remind myself of everything I've forgotten and just kind of take naturally. And the star could be actually a rose. And they said it depends on what company it's keeping. So if there's other plants and stuff on the egg, and then you do the star, it's actually a star rosette. If you've got more planetary things on the egg, then it's a star, which I thought, oh, I didn't know that part. That's kind of cool. So every line now that I'm going to do is going to be parallel to another line. So first of all, I will mark my inner circle of where I'm going to start. I'm putting a little tick, and that I still do, unless I'm rushing. And then, so I've got a little tick all the way around of wax to help me where I start. So which camera is going to do this better? Probably where you're at. Okay. I start at one of my dots, and the line I'm going to do is going to be parallel to this line. I could have gone around and done a dot of how high I want to go to keep them even. I'm just going to try and eyeball it and see if I can manage it. So my next line is again parallel, starting from the dot, and this line was parallel to that line. I find that I really like doing the geometric eggs the best, and I guess because the relationship between the lines kind of, see, I didn't brace my fingers right and I started to curve. Let's see if I can slightly fix. I'll just rewrite it. It'll just be thicker. Okay, so I'm looking at where my dots are. I'm going parallel and parallel. Same thing, parallel. Focus for a minute. There are three types of eggs. You have eggs that are geometric, you have eggs that are plant motifs, or eggs that are animal motifs. I like to blend them a little bit, but it's kind of the three categories that would be done. And the animals in the tropillion eggs were basically maybe the hunting animals that they would have gone after, so wild animals. And the plants would have been, yeah, they're local plants, and most plants are always like hope, charity, and love. The animals are kind of strength and protection. Okay, so this is a bit of a jagged egg, but you can see where we're going with it. And I will usually go and do another set of lines around. Again, I need to remember to go parallel. And this one wasn't parallel, so I didn't focus. So, and I would do another ring, and I actually have an egg that I demoed to Robert the other day. That here's my, well, I haven't put other flowers on this, so this is a star rosette.
Can we see the star?
This is the star.
Yeah.
Not a star rosette. I tried on the back. There's a star that is in one of the pattern books that, this is 3 a.m, mind you, that it was a very deep star, a very long star. And I realized I will never do that again, because you, for that length, and on the curve, you can't control your line that well. They did obviously in their pattern. I couldn't. And they would then fill this would be white. They would fill the space red, but they would have left a circle in the center, and it would have turned it into a flower. And I'm not doing that, but, and they also added in their design, they put pine branches. Don't have, it's not hard enough, so we'll just warm it up again. So to do pine, which represents strength, they would make lines going along, and there, I need a new candle. Give me a second. Didn't work. Lighter. The lighter is on the other side of the room, so we'll likely have.
Lynn, watching you do this, I'm impressed at how long it's actually going to take you to make an egg.
Forever, yes. And
Well,
that's
the other thing is, you mentioned that sometimes there's a front and a back to the eggs. I never realized that before. But since you have to do all sides of the eggs, I'm also impressed with actually how much real estate there is on a little egg.
and I went through all my collection of through the years, and I've got some eggs that I don't believe I did, because I did such tiny fine lines, and the egg is covered so much it's shocking to me to see it now. So I guess from that time to now, I had a brain tumor in there, so maybe the coordination enhanced. So there's what you would do for a pine tree, and you're wishing strength, and trees are always
Can you show it to us, please? Right.
the little jagged little bits along there representing the branches, or no, the pine needles. So I'll do another one. So this,
She says she takes forever, but she's actually way faster than Matt and I.
hi Rishki,
Hello, hello.
thank you. Son number 1, son number 2, thank you. This whole thing is dedicated to you guys, okay? So there's a pine. I have eggs of yours to show later. So that's the pine. And I'm just going to confirm it with my little crib sheet here that that's exactly what I meant. Pine trees, health, stamina, eternal youth, boldness. Okay, so that's that. Once you've got all the lines, your basic lines on, you would put it in the yellow dye. So this egg, star egg's kind of a favorite for me, is has been dyed yellow. I tried to start one on the back, but changed the pattern and kind of didn't work. So I tried to fix it by putting darker lines around it when the lines got really jiggly, but it's this side I'm trying to show. And I also read if it was a star rosette, they would make the center yellow to represent the center of a flower. That's how you know whether it's a star or a star rosette. So I learned something new last night. So I would now decide to fill in what I want on this egg yellow. So you always have to pay attention that you're painting with color. You have to always be thinking of, where is there going to be yellow? Where will I put my green? Where will red go? And you try and balance it around your egg. So you're always thinking ahead of where you're going. And I'm looking for my green pen.
You also plan your egg before you begin. And it seems to me when we've talked, the planning is actually a big part of doing the egg.
Richard? Husband's on their couch now. Okay. I need a green pen from that bar. I thought I moved it to this side of the table. What it is you can't use red and green on the egg by dyeing. One has to be hand painted on. So I would be putting some of these petals with a marker, a permanent marker, green. I'm not going to be able to demo that until my assistant comes back. So I would probably start filling in. Let's do the whole outside. We'll do the inside of the egg yellow. That's what we'll start. So we'll turn this into a flower. So I would be going now and filling in sections, and I'm going to alternate it, and that pen is not happy, so we've got to warm it up a little bit better.
And we're at 8:30, just by the way.
No way.
Way.
No way. Oh, I'm sorry. Holy Dinah. Okay, that got away from me. So I'm going to do alternate little sections here. Yellow. Yeah. Because I would like to do so I've done 4 yellow, and I would like to do 4 that would be green.
And while it's facing us by your thumb, it looks like you have blocked the hole in the egg. Is that correct?
Yes. So I don't like working on hollow eggs, and I have to admit that most of the people that were on that huge Pysanky for Ukraine had blow in their eggs because they float. So to get this to go yellow, I had to put it in a glass jar with the yellow dye and wedge some spoons over it, and then put a jar on top to hold it under the water, because it has to be sealed. Because if your dye had gone inside, you're going to ruin your dyes, and the dye would start eating away from the inside of the egg as well as from your surface, and you don't want that to happen. I would then fill in these. Actually, I'm going to do dots here. I would go around this border, and I'm going to make little dots, which represent stars, or they could have been, it got translated to being Mary's tears after what happened to her son. So it got, a lot of the meanings got changed to Christian meanings. So I would be going all the way around the egg doing the dots to just kind of add texture to it. And I think I have one. So this is all, everything underneath has been protected. This egg is a departure for me. I learned something from this workshop with the people, that they've been acid etching their eggs. So basically you protect your surface, what you want to stay the natural color of the shell, then put it in vinegar for 10, 15, 20 minutes and eat away part of the shell. It comes out a slightly lighter color. So you then cover what you want to be the lighter color and protect it with the wax over the top, put it back into your mixture of vinegar and water. Leave it another, I was doing 15 minutes at a time. And then my final one, so it was not a dark brown egg, but a medium brown egg. It went to a beautiful kind of ivory tone, and I couldn't get it to go to white, but I was actually scared to leave it in longer because it was, I've seen people say that if they go too long, they eat away the entire shell and they end up with just the yolk and white floating in the in a jar with pieces of shell. So I didn't want to do that. This is ready for me to take off the wax. So I want to demonstrate that to you, but I'll show you from yellow. I don't want to handle these because they have to go through more dyes. Oh, there's an example of green. I put bees going around. I tried my hand at sunflowers, but I didn't kind of space it right. Which camera?
Closer to the camera. There you go.
So bumblebees were really revered by the Ukrainians because the bees made the wax that they used. The bees got the honey from the flowers. So they honored the flowers, they honored the bee, the wax, and then it was all messages of spring. So very important details for them. So you can see here on the egg that I filled the centers with, I used a felt pen, but you could take a Q-tip and just dip it from your wax into your dye and put it in between the sections where you want it. Now I have to admit, when they talked about using the rubber band, and I'm like, oh, never. On this particular egg, I realized my skills don't go to diagonals very well. So I actually tried putting the rubber band around to give me an idea of where I was going. So you can see, and then I drew my lines, but they were showing in the book that you would actually trace along the edge of the elastic band. And it's like, I guess there's value in some of the things they did. I actually tried with a twist tie off the Continental coffee bag, that if I folded it over the egg, would it give me a way to then do my lines so that I could do the diagonal. So I cheated a little bit. From the yellow, you would go into orange, and this one is from orange. And I've got flowers, I've got an oak leaf. Oak leaf represents strength. The triangles, the netting to catch your wishes or to sieve out evil. The deer, this is a stylized deer. This is a tropillion kind of more pattern. The stylized deer wishing wealth and prosperity. And this, I have to make a decision on this egg, whether to go into darker red or go to my base coat. Since I've made some this color, I have to go, need one more color on there before I can finish. So you go from here into red, and then from red, you would go into the black. And this is a finished egg ready to take the wax off. So I don't know, grab a pen. I wanted to explain a few other things, but I'm jumping to this because if we're timing, this you have to see. So I've got stars, a big star band going around that, so that, like I just showed you, should be a green center. I hope there's a green center. I have the big star rosette coming around here. That's a mixture of yellow and green. And I think this egg actually took orange really well. And I have the tree of life. The tree of life is very important, wishing. Health and oh, I have to look it up. So I have the tree, I have deer on here, wealth and prosperity again, a fish. The fish was a mythological creature trying to help you find your way. And I need, he's not close. Maybe I did it. Maybe it was on top of it. I was. Here we go. I need cloth, and I'm going to show you how you take the wax off an egg. So, pens out of the way. Got a flame going. Oh, you notice that my candles are half. I don't like using a tall candle because you really have to raise your hand up and down when you're going to warm your pen and back to your egg. And I want the smallest amount of movement possible. So if I'm using this pen, and this pen is a bit different because you're heating it up in your flame, you're then pushing it into the wax, you're back to the flame, into the wax, and then you would write on your egg. This is probably much better system of you don't have to put your egg down, get your little piece of beeswax and fill your pan, you can go right from wax to whatever. So I use a lower candle just because I'm finding it gives me more speed and keeps the pan hotter. So to take the wax off the egg, I'm going to use the side of the candle flame. And I'm going to always be working to push the wax away from where I'm clearing. So I'm starting at the bottom. And I'm not going into the flame. I'm beside it. There's, you know, maybe 1/8 of an inch between the candle and the egg. If you go in and start to do it, the candle bends over the egg and leaves soot all across the top of it. So you're just at the side. When you've got it going, I usually try and keep my cloth flat in my hand, and I'm revealing here, pulling the wax away. So I'm going down to the next section.
Show the camera after you swipe away the wax, Mom.
Okay. Is it showing? So I
But
fish.
you can bring it up to the camera as long as you give it some backing so it doesn't focus on the background. And bring it up higher so you're in the middle of the frame. Not closer to the camera, but higher up in the frame. Yeah, like that.
Okay. So a fish is being uncovered. And again, you don't want to bend over it. You don't want the candle bending over. Okay. There are several types of egg that the Ukrainian people do. And I mentioned already the geometric, the plant one, and whatever. So this is a batiking method that we're doing. And there is a method where they dye the egg all one color and then scratch away on the egg. I believe that's called, I wrote it down so I wouldn't mix them up. So let's just see if I can find it.
I can't quite hear you.
Is it sgraffito?
A drapanka. So they would scratch away, and I have an example of that I'll reach in a second and show you. Okay.
After all the work you've done, this process that you're doing now must be fairly emotional as you see the result of the work you've done.
I'm a wee bit disappointed because there wasn't green in the center of those stars. But, and I think when I look at some of the eggs that Richard and Matthew did with me when they were kids, my colors were much brighter. And if you're doing eggs for children, you would be wanting the brighter kids because that's part of that brightness is part of the symbols of childhood, nice, bright, shiny colors. So I see that my eggs are much more, the colors are much more subdued. So it's telling me, okay, maybe it's time to do a new set of dyes.
I find my eyes are always attracted to the very dark ones. I love that red and black one that's sitting in the egg carton right behind you that you were talking about before.
Yeah, okay. So you notice I'm trying to wipe the wax into the rest of the wax. Now I'll stop and.
If you have a book or something to back it up so the background's hidden, it'll focus on the egg.
I have that blue book. There it is. Then let's not catch it on fire.
Well, that'll be spectacular. Can you come up in the middle of the frame? That's a little better. Yeah. And then you can bring it in closer slowly and it will focus. Lovely. And now straight up.
I need you to turn it to show you the fish. So the fish was a mythological creature that helped you find your way. So I usually put a fish on there for wherever stages my sons are at, that wishing them help in finding their direction. Okay, let's see if we uncover the rest of this star.
Lynn, this is a 2022 egg that you're doing. How long ago did you start this one?
These are all over the last 2 weeks, I guess. The dyes are giving, this is actually an older egg. So what happened is I have a lot of eggs that were prepared and made ready to make Ukrainian Easter eggs. And I guess I basically try and do one for each member of my family. And I've never really branched beyond that. But I guess I had hopes that maybe I would put more time in on them and make just some special patterns from some of the pattern books that there are out there, and never got to them. So I didn't want these eggs to have given their lives in vain and not turn into Easter eggs. So I was trying to use the older eggs first, and the dyes are taking differently than on a fresh white egg.
And we're at 8:45.
All right, let's see how far I can get on getting this egg finished.
You were telling me that even if you break an egg, because of its importance and significance, you don't throw it away.
And I have a basket full of broken eggs over there to show you if we have time. So, okay, let's stop and look. Mindful of the candle. So the star is uncovering.
I do see green.
A little bit. And I realized I showed Anne and Bon one of my spring eggs from a few years back and realized that all the green had faded. So this will be the last year that I'll use the permanent Sharpie. I will now go back to dabbing it with a Q-tip and out of the green dye bottle, green jar. So I learned something. Oh, I don't need to finish this, but it would be nice to be able to see it when I've got other things I want to show you. So how much longer should we try for? So I guess something that I learned is they have eggs that represent spring, which I told you about. They have eggs that are done for each day of Easter. So the beginning of Easter or Lent or whatever, each one of those days has a special egg for it. I found out there was an egg, which I'm going to make this pattern this year for the universe, that represents the universe. There's an egg that's called the Heavenly Gate, which is for maybe for souls that have departed, that you would make an egg for them. Or for a new little one born would have come through the gate. So a bit more, each egg has its own special meaning, and there's specific eggs for specific times. The eggs were considered almost like a talisman, that you would always have an egg in your home on the mantle because it was offered protection to your house. You would maybe take an egg and you would make an egg for your garden to wish a bountiful harvest in your garden. You would take an egg that you had done, you would go rub the oxen, the head of the oxen and leave it in the barn for wishing good health to your animals. You could do an egg for the priest, an egg for your neighbors. Each one, there were gifts that you were trying to, okay, a bit of wax over here. If I take that off, I've got most of the star uncovered. Now,
And do you do eggs at Christmas too, or do you only do them at Easter traditionally?
Traditionally just for Easter myself, but I've seen there are a lot of these people that were become incredibly professional doing them. We're doing them all year long, and different Slavic countries actually make them for hanging on the Christmas tree too. So that's not something that I would do, but it's who knows? I'm learning as I go, so maybe I would. So that's the star. And
Very beautiful.
it's got ram horns sitting at the top, so that's wishing strength. The little dots are all more stars.
Got to raise it a bit higher. There you go.
Okay. And the symbols on the other side is the tree and the deer, which I can show you on a finished egg, I suppose, rather than taking it off. My cousins told me that, cousin who's Ukrainian, she said she remembers her aunties when she was sick rubbing her forehead with the egg to try and make her well. So they believed it would bring you good health too. So okay, so that's an egg from the other day. So these dyes to me are very dark, and I've got to look at being a little brighter somehow. If I reach for, I had all these things to show you the different kinds of pens. Maybe I can do that part. If you didn't have a pen yet, you can make it. Are we going to have Richard demonstrate making the pen?
That's up to you. However, we have 10 minutes to go in this meeting.
Okay. You could use a straight nib pen. This is the wrong nib on the end. Let's see if I got that right here. You ready to demonstrate making a pen? Okay. You could take and use a straight nib. So which camera am I on?
Yeah, on the close-up.
And you would just warm the tip up into your wax, warm your tip up into your wax, and write on your egg, but using this nib, not the flat line. Well, I don't know, maybe that could make wide lines, I don't know. So you could, there's eggs that are made that it's a drop. You would warm it, this is like a little nub on the end. You would warm the drop of it, warm the tip into the wax, and it's going to drip. You let it drip on the egg and pull it a little bit, so it's called a drop and pull. And you could make a bit of curl to it and make flowers and patterns and shapes. So there's several different types. One egg is called Pysanky, where you cover the egg with little dots to represent. You do a whole series over your egg, different size dots, then put it in your yellow dye. From there, more dots, put it in your next dye, go from your lightest to your darkest, and then take it off, and you've got this dotted egg. You want these out of the way now? Okay. Rich is going to show you how to make your own pen.
And we should say that Richard's a little bit camera shy, so he's only going to show you his hands.
No. Oh, don't move it. No, you want to. Okay. We're adjusting the. I could have lifted this up.
Okay.
Some assembly required, jeweler tools not provided.
Making the pen. Ingredients. Half of the chopstick, which have a slit cut with the handsaw.
Can you turn the slot towards us so we can see it? Yeah. No, turn the slot towards us so we can see it. There we go.
That's it, yeah.
Okay. Now, I have in my junk metal box some copper sheet, which I cut in the thin strips. Then we need a short strip of pretty soft, flexible copper. Then the way to do the pen is like to make a paper airplane. Bend it on 45 degree on one side, bend another side, and fold it together. And this is the pen, which will go into the chopstick slit.
Come down a little bit. You're at the top of the frame. Thank you.
The leftovers could be bent sideways
And if I,
using jeweler's scissors. I just cut the excess of it.
and if I'm gonna say something, if you don't squeeze it at the top here, it stays open like a little cup, and it works. There's a bit of a gap showing there in that top of it, so it holds more wax. That's a
Yeah.
bit too flat.
And then I need a
Quality control here.
piece of wire to secure the metal on the wood.
What is that wire? Stainless steel wire?
I think it's a fishing line.
Yes. Come down a little bit so we can see you. Thank you.
Go a little lower.
I cut the excess of it, which is sharp. Bend it a little bit to make it safety. And this is ready to go.
That's beautiful.
Richard is the proprietor of the fire agate. He's a world expert on fire agates and jewelry.
He makes it look easy, but he's had experience at this.
You can fix anything. I have to show you an egg. I was going to tell you the story of this egg that I'd made for our oldest son.
Are you
Yeah.
going to move it back to where you were, the camera?
Yes.
Yes,
And I'm going to look at you doing that, and then we'll come back to the close-up. Tell me when you're ready for the close-up. Now, the last time I saw this egg, it was broken, and it's been slightly repaired for this.
I think Lynn's muted.
event.
I think Lynn's talking, but she's muted.
Beautiful.
Okay, does that work?
It certainly does. Thank you.
The foam just must have faded on itself. So on this egg, when he first came to Canada, so like 30 years ago, I tried to make an egg for him that wished him as many wishes as I could to be have successful in Canada. So every symbol that I have on, so this egg was through ages, so it's got to be 30 years ago, right? When we moved here. So it has fallen apart, and Richard this morning re-glued it back to, crazy glued this sucker back together. So I'm actually trying to say that, yes, my husband is very accomplished.
for the napkin.
Jewelry. He made my son's rings for his wedding.
And the picture of this egg, it actually got a better picture, so it's.
Did you put it back in its egg cup?
No, I'm thinking I'm gonna lift it up in a second. This is the actual Oh, how am I gonna do that?
Do you want me to go back to the other camera? I'll do that. It's not a problem. It just,
Well, I actually have
no,
a
no,
small.
no. We'll go back to there we go.
Oh, okay. Each of the symbols that are on this egg are wishing for a good life. Let me get a pointer here.
You'll have to bring it up closer to the camera so the camera will expose for it. That's right.
So netting to catch his wishes, to sieve out evil. The deer are representing wealth and prosperity. The jagged line is wolves' teeth for protection. The dots are stars in the sky. The chicks represent kind of like fertility or bountifulness. So you're wishing that you get your wishes, I suppose. The fish, he was really undecided of what his direction was in Canada. So I had fish all the way around trying to wish him that he would figure out where he was going and what he wanted to do. So I have it in miniature when I put it beside the egg, and this probably should go on the other camera, but
Hold it
That's
right
okay
up.
if you bring it up to the camera. It'll be fine. Bring it up in the middle of the paper though. And no, get the paper to hide the background. So it'll come on up to the camera. It'll be fine. Yeah, something like that.
I'm shaking too, so it doesn't help. But
Have to raise it up a bit.
up.
There you go.
And Lynn, we're at the top of the hour, and there's one thing I'd love you to show the folks, and that is what happens to an egg that is not cooked and is allowed to dry out.
So that's the egg that I was going to tell you, that this is a style of egg that,
And I'll go over to the other camera.
okay. I got kind of messy here. This egg was done for my grandparents, I guess, as a wedding anniversary egg. So it was dyed black, and then they scratched away the flowers. So and made the pattern by scratching. So that's the one that's called a drapenka. And from 1960, I think is the date on it. Somehow along the line it cracked, and inside is the yolk.
Lift it up a little bit. Yes, there, that's better.
There's the yolk. So it's an egg that's dried out. And it's like a little marble inside the egg. And it's actually, you can almost see into the center of it. I don't know if you've got the lighting to be able to see that, but there's the egg. So eventually your eggs do dry out. And if you're really into varnishing them and presenting them to the public, like, the varnish prevents them from drying out that well. And they recommend leave it for a while to dry first before you put the varnish on. So if you listen, where's my mic? That's in this egg, which I tried to save. It was already dried. Can you hear it?
Yes.
Hear the rattling? So I have a few brightly colored eggs that I wouldn't mind to share.
Oh my.
Just a few.
Just a minute. You know what, guys? I have a box with 7 cartons in it. So I didn't get to this part of the program. I'm sorry. Let's see. The star. I love the stars. I love the netting. Am I actually in view? And
Yep.
you need to put something behind it?
No, it's pretty good the way it is. Lots of green on by your thumb too.
I always like that green actually was dipped from the Q-tip. So I'll be going back to that style. Flowers going around. Flowers on the bottom part, stars on the top. This egg is oak leaves, and oak leaves are representing strength. And the dots and the little wavy lines is representing the sun. So strength egg. Here's a star egg, a different style. This is closer to what the universe egg looks like. So I will remake that. That took a really nice purple. My spring egg again. I love this egg. This is
Come a
this-
little closer to you so you're more in the center of the frame, not closer to us, just yeah, and down a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's closer to the center. Thank you.
So it's the sun's rays and the fern unfolding. These smaller eggs are kind of eggs that I would have done for Richard and Matthew. So there's 4 fish on this one. So I guess somebody was really at a point where I was wishing them to find their way. Gave them deer, wishing them wealth and prosperity. And the little tree.
And
of
come
life.
down a little bit. You're right at the edge of the frame. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody know Robert Semenyak?
I know the name, yes.
He's a famous photographer, but I think he must be Ukrainian because at one point I did some computer work for him and he presented me with this beautiful poster probably about 20 years ago of Ukrainian eggs
Oh,
that
wow.
he had taken a photograph of. Yeah.
This meandering line is also helping of finding your way, the map kind of. Flower egg, wishing and poppies. Poppies are really big. If it's not sunflowers, it's poppies. This is actually for a garden, wishing bountiful harvest because it has the wheat in there and the poppies. And there's some bees on there, so it's a garden egg. Yeah, I wanted to put a whole basket. When our kids were really little, Richard Senior here would sit and make eggs with me, and this is a dragon egg. Now let's find a dragon's head. Oh, that's the flowers. There's a dragon egg in there too. Find the dragon towards the bottom.
You gotta bring it right into the center of your frame and right up to the camera, Mom.
Sorry. This one, I don't do going around the middle of an egg very well, like to have to write this way because you're narrower. So the fact that I actually have one here that I did it, I'm impressed. Eggs, when you're working with an egg, it kind of leads you to what style of pattern you would put on it. If it's a round, roly-poly egg, then you work on making it the pattern would be more round, or if it's a long narrow egg, you would do like I did and you go around the center of it. So the eggs kind of tell you what kind of pattern you want to be doing on it. Again, I went around the middle. I must have been really brave way back when. I don't think I could, my hands would shake too much now. Is it in the middle enough? Okay. Richard, pass me that basket and we'll finish off with the basket. I have, funnily enough, I opened this one package and it's like, oh, this is pretty. It says Matt. It said Matt on the top. Not it. I moved it to the side. Matt's. His pen says Matt. I've got another one somewhere that has Richard on. So there's his pen, and this is an egg that he was getting started. Which pressed the heck out of me.
Oh man, I completely forgot about these.
I'm so glad you're here, Matt. This is wonderful.
If in that basket, actually hand me the egg carton behind the basket. Let's get it. These had, this is the egg that I said I couldn't believe that I actually did. So.
Oh my.
Blue background. This is like, when did I do that? I must have been.
I will say we're 8 minutes past the top of the hour. I'm going to keep this going as long as anybody wants. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and unmute and ask.
So can you see how, does it show how fine those lines are? I'm just kind of in
Awesome.
awe.
Why don't you try bringing that really close to the camera and let me see if up a bit, up. Yeah, like that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I just like, when did I do that? Probably when I didn't wear glasses. Turn it.
These things have kind of become heirlooms for us, that we know that they're in the family, and we will often look back at them fondly of times when we actually had the time and energy to go and make these things.
Well, Matt's got a set of pens now that I mailed out to him. You need to pick up a set so you've got them and go back to, I can just imagine what your eggs would be like. Pretty fantastic as adults, because you guys were so artistic as children, as kids. So again, look, I'll find the webbing to sieve out the evil, the netting. I don't even know what that one represents, but this is more, I would say, I don't know why I didn't finish this egg, because pretty steady lines, and I'm shaking. Pretty steady lines. That's the star I was trying to make on the one that didn't work out. So this what now was waiting for its green. It would have needed its green put on it.
Would you ever come back to it?
I could try. Someone, I made a comment on this group of people that I was trying to save these old eggs, but the surface was so waxy that it wouldn't take the dyes. And they said if I continued to use them, I would ruin the dyes, that I give up on them. And it's like, oh, I don't want to give up on them. On Matt's egg, the brown one that I showed was just the rooster and stuff. We could hand color it in. Like you could write with your wax on the egg and then color it in with permanent markers. It would fade eventually, but it would be worth it to save it, or just color it one single color. So we have to consult on that one.
That
So
last
the-
one was varnished, wasn't it?
Yes. So more brightness. Another really fun one. I don't know when does it show? No clue. Before kids, maybe. How could I put that kind of hours in?
In the words of Leonardo da Vinci, artwork is never finished, only abandoned. So
There it is. Okay. I didn't want these eggs to be abandoned. How's that? So this is a garden egg, wishing your garden bountiful harvest. Obviously, I've done similar before to that. This one is with the weed on it, is wishing again bountiful harvest and the stars and the netting. See, I like how bright those are, so I need to figure out how to go back to that. And this oak leaf has always given me trouble, kind of the freehand that's needed, but this one, when I look at it, it's like, looks pretty nice.
But look at the vivid green.
Yeah. And the turquoise, that turquoise didn't work this year. The turquoise didn't work, so I switched to navy blue, and I managed last night to get navy blue all over my hands because of trying to do that finished bit on the egg. So the fish, somebody needed help, or guidance, I guess would be the word. Anyway, I have baskets on the other side of the table that were all going to be showed. So yeah, I could talk for years about this, I guess. I think this year I'm with Ukraine. I realize I really want to do some of the eggs. Each area of Ukraine has their own special style or particular style that they do. So someone who knows the history of the eggs and stuff could look and say, oh, this is from Bukovina, or this is from the Kiev area, or whatever. And I think I would like to try doing a few for particular areas. I saw one last night on someone put up on, this is Richard Rishke, I think that's you.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's me.
I think that's you.
Yeah, I remember doing that. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
You were
decades ago.
6 or 7 years old. It was,
Yep.
it was
Oh
pretty
my.
good. Pretty dark. Are we getting them in the right places?
Yeah, it's great.
Fish, this one the netting again, the 48 triangles. I was trying to think of a different pattern in the middle, and so this is probably a Richard Senior, an egg for him, wishing him wealth, 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 prosperity, prosperity, catch your wishes. They had a big discussion on this forum of why are you making eggs? And most people were saying they did it for, it's so relaxing to do it. And I think what I picked up on what their meaning is, you really have to focus on what you're doing. You get so drawn in of what wishes are you going to put on the egg that you kind of forget the rest of the world around you while you're doing it. So this half is son's eggs. And I don't know if I study them closer, I'll probably figure out whose writing it is, but that's Richard or Matthew. This one didn't quite get finished. Again, Richard or Matthew. Who would have put a lizard on the egg? Richard or Matthew? One of you? Right. I figured pretty cool. Going for a star. Just the color, just, you know, it doesn't matter that the lines are shaky or whatever. It's just, look at that, Ukrainian colors from way back when. Not
Mhm.
bad. I found way back when these little pullet eggs near one of my schools. I was teaching at inner city, so the corridor along Commercial and Fraser. And these little eggs, I've never found them since. So, because that was from Sons, and here we're going to a lot of netting. The spirals are, evil gets caught in or trapped in the spirals, which is why spirals are important. I always seem, okay, this is would have been done for a son. Butterflies represent the joys of childhood. So and the chicks, same thing, of that delight in life and whatever. So, and it rattles. And I'm wishing them the long life, never ending line, the wealth and prosperity, the flowers for joy and happiness, the pine trees for strength. And there's no teeth. Normally I would have put the jagged little wolf's teeth on there for wishing protection. So that might be another sun egg.
I can see why you said these are heirlooms.
Yeah. I have tons and tons of these. So it represents a lot of love. A lot of love. And we could probably, if there's questions or anything, but that's kind of aside. Oh, I told you about the egg that I saw that someone had put the egg, they painted a tank on one side of it. They actually painted the tank on the egg and then put a little toy tractor in front of it and was pulling the egg. And I thought that was pretty exactly.
You're at the top of the frame right now. You need to come down a bit. There. Thank you.
These are so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. They are beautiful.
I'm so inspired.
Well, we just need to get you pens. We got them. Richard's got some made, so I'll have them when we have our weekend and get you outfitted with a beeswax. And this is a husband egg with the flowers on.
Are you doing a workshop of some sort where like people get together on Bowen to make eggs?
Will you do one?
We could. I've done it in the past. We could figure out how to do that. Yes.
Great.
We were talking about maybe doing a fundraiser for Rotary.
That'd be fantastic.
We might even do it online like this, where Lynn instructs
be
and
so fun.
everybody's out there doing their thing and we can see what people are doing.
That would be great.
Wow. I'm in.
Okay,
In person though.
so you can say stay tuned and we'll figure it out. And there's just so many other things I could be showing you and whatever, but I didn't realize how quickly the time would go. So my apology. Oh, I got one in here to show you. There's the bottom of this basket is son's eggs, except for this one.
The basket is out of the top of the frame. You have to bring it.
I've got the other eggs underneath.
Yes.
So this one is, you can see that the egg is kind of turned to like jello inside, but it's hard. The scrambled egg's hard. And there was a discussion of if your eggs are old or broken or whatever, what to do with them on this line. And most of the Ukrainian people would have been making these eggs and then would have gone in an Easter basket to church and would have been blessed. And one lady said her dad said, if your eggs have been blessed, you absolutely cannot throw them in the garbage. They need to be buried in your garden to help your garden grow better. Or they put it, if you were building a house, you would put the eggs in the foundation of a house, like in the cement to protect your house. And then you would have one on the mantle. So husband did this egg when the kids were really little. So it says Veseloego Yaika, which is happy egg. So it's basically saying happy Easter. And on the other side, he wrote happy Easter, but it's faded. So that's the oils from the yolk coming through that kind of changed the shell. I was hoping to find the dragon egg, but they're ending stars. I love those stars, and that's wishing for
Me too.
yeah, wishing the garden. Same garden. These are damaged because an egg, probably that last one I showed you, broke and dripped onto them. This is probably the oldest egg in here, so I think I did that in university.
Oh,
You did a good diagonal line without an elastic.
And I don't know how. Another egg that would have been for a son. So the butterflies, the ram's horn for strength, flowers for love, hope.
Put
and
that one
cheer.
right up to the camera, Mom. That's quite the unusual one.
The fish.
And you got to move it more to your, yes.
Oops, sorry. Well, my hands have stopped shaking. So, and the fish was on the other side that got stained in that particular basket. This one is, I didn't know I knew this, but there's a special shawl that they wear. So on the eggs, if you see, usually would have a fringe, little, would have had little lines in a row. And I was just reading about that. I didn't know that that's what it was, but it's very important that it would have been carried when you got married. It would have been, I guess you made it, and it would accompany through all your major changes in life. So representing your life or a long life. So there we go. We're netting and pine, I guess. Don't remember making that one, but obviously I did. So anyway, I think that's about, see, I want that bright green back. So we're going to change what we do this year.
No more Sharpies.
No, Sharpies are, well, the Sharpie's probably older than Richard and Matthew. So that could be what my problem is. There we go. I think I maybe one more basket.
So good.
This egg was done, I'm gonna move the basket a tiny bit. You started off dyeing the egg yellow. This one's the same, so I can talk about both of them. Now, showing, you dye your
Right
egg yellow, do everything yellow, go into orange, put your orange, and then into red. Oh, before you went from yellow, you had to do the bit of green. on this one had a bit of green. So you had to do the green first. Then the red, and then your final dye would be black. And it's really hard at this point. You've dyed your egg black to actually write black. So you've got to use some pretty bright lights. And then when you're completely done, it goes into bleach. A bleach mixed with water. And you're slowly with a paintbrush brushing those areas to get the dye off to get back to the natural white shell. So these have yellowed with age. But it's a different style of doing the egg and kind of special. And I tried with this egg of doing it with the vinegar and water. So I'm looking forward to, I wanted to take the dye off, the wax off of this one so you would see that it'll be varying shades of brown. And I actually, that's why the blue dye and I had a little run-in. There's blue dye on this side in the 4 points. And on the other side, I made drops of yellow to make the yellow suns. So I figured there's my token to Ukraine colors, but it'll be in shades of brown. And this one is actually done for Richard's husband for Easter. This will be his egg with the netting to catch his wishes. The deer wishing him wealth and prosperity. The sun for the love and one for the sun. But in this egg, a friend of mine who, when I was at university, the professor asked if I would do a set of pictures of how to make eggs. So there's a whole set at UVic of how to go from start to finish, done by me and photographed by the lady who made me this egg. So this egg.
Can you raise it up a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The egg to me was, she was the art teacher that then went on and taught all over the world, named Sharon. So to me, this is just like, I think there's a person here and I'm just, oh, there we go. The 2 people. Does it show?
Mhm.
One and Betty. And then the long dress coming down with all the lace work, just astounding. When we met to actually work on eggs, I had a candlestick that I really had found at a garage sale or something, and it had grape leaves and grapes all over it. And when I came to her house to sit and work with her, she went to her mantle and had the mate. So she found it at a garage sale or whatever. So somehow they got separated. So before she left to travel all over the world, she made me this egg with the grapes and the grape leaves and put a poem to me on it. I just treasured pieces. And different style of star. And this is green with the felt pen. You can see it doesn't have the brightness anymore. So there we go. I think, okay, so now I've showed, there's another 7 cartons and there's more upstairs, but at least you've seen an overview. Oh, when the egg dries out, if it doesn't dry out properly, it's kind of wobbly and it only goes the way it wants. So
Can you bring it up a little closer to you and then wobble it? Yeah, but no, right at the bottom of the frame. Yeah, that's better.
So this one trying to display it. The top is this way, but it won't stay that way. It just wants to roll around. So it get wedged into the cup and it's tilting to the side because it wants to be upside down. On the back, I actually had, it was a spiral, but when I tried to do the other half of the spiral, I kind of lost whatever in it. So it can be the serpent, and actually a snake called a had, which was a good snake that didn't probably found in homes or around homes. So I'm thinking that might be the name for a garter snake. And then the poppies for Ukraine.
Are you still zooming? Or
Yeah, we are.
Bring it right into the camera, Mom. Right up to the camera. It's a good one.
Can you hear Richard and Matt? Richard's talking?
Mhm.
Keep on. And Terrence there, I think. And Matt was on.
Can you
Okay,
go
so-
up, straight up a little bit? Not towards the camera, just straight up. So the too high. Now there.
So my spiral which is supposed to trap evil, turned into a snake, but the snake has its own meaning and it's for good. So you adapt. All the dots are representing stars with flowers. Okay. So I just, as they age, they can age to the point that they rattle inside, which is basically what you want. Last one that I can see on the table to show you. So, and probably more for garden, wishing with your wheat and your flowers. And I don't remember when I did that one, but nice and bright. So I need to go back to being able to do that. So
Yeah, concept.
this year.
In summary, decades of craft and
Yeah.
refining her work.
Well, I expect you guys to carry it on, okay?
Yep.
We're here on the other camera. You can look for us. Look at us here. There we are.
Okay.
Lynn, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for bringing so much of yourself as well as this incredible history and art to us.
Thank you, Lynn. It was amazing.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to do it. I wish there was so much more I could have talked about or told you, but when you get involved in it, you just kind of. I asked Robert and Richard to cue me about timing, and husband is doing. So I liked your cueing better. So thank you. Or you're done. No, he doesn't do that. Sorry. I just got corrected. It was definitely, that's it. You're done. Finish.
This was so cool. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm glad.
Lynn was
Hi,
wonderful.
Lynn. It's been great.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so any questions, just call or ask. Yeah. And we can do another private Zoom if we have to.
Okay.